Cloud Strife is a character that has been beloved by many for almost 30 years, and whether you truly know him or not, there's a good chance you've come across him at some point given his impact on the world of video games. While there are many other video game protagonists who are just as recognizable by name, Cloud Strife is arguably one of the most identifiable characters in gaming history. I mean, seriously, you can't tell me you wouldn't recognize this guy. You've seen him in Kingdom Hearts, you've seen him in Smash. Heck, you've probably seen the guy naked at this point with how many mods are out there. Even still, there is much more to Cloud's character than just being some cool edgelord that people, both fans and non-fans, perceive him to be. As a matter of fact, I can attest to this as someone who didn't really dive into the world of Final Fantasy VII until late 2024, and thought that Cloud was a pretty standoffish guy on a surface level. I am someone who has been slowly but surely getting exposed to the vastness of video games thanks to my friends over the last couple of years, so I am far from being an expert in the field. That being said, one of my favorite pastimes is analyzing stories. There is something uniquely gratifying about being able to sit down and read between the lines of an especially complex plotline, and Final Fantasy VII has proved to me that it does just that, not just for myself, but for many others who are also captivated by its storytelling. This is one of the things that makes Final Fantasy VII so iconic and memorable even 30 years later, and now that I've experienced it for myself, I can genuinely say I have completely fallen in love with this game, just as many others have. However, despite its phenomenal storytelling and lovable cast of characters, I have come to realize that there are many fans who have not escaped this more superficial perception of Cloud's character, even after having dived into the series deeply. Now, this isn't to say that people can't have their own interpretations of the franchise and its characters, but there is a fine line between what is canon and what is not. If this line were to get crossed too far, and interpretations start molding that which is already set by the source material, it can lead to a misinterpretation of the story the developers were trying to convey. And, believe it or not, this common misinterpretation typically starts with the protagonist whose journey we follow. To keep it simple, if Cloud is misunderstood, so is the story of Final Fantasy VII. But what happens when the protagonist doesn't even know himself? So, who is Cloud Strife? If you've played the games, you'd know he'd introduce himself as an ex-soldier first class. So, what is soldier? What does it mean to be first class? Why is he no longer a part of this organization? Well, that's what Final Fantasy VII wants to answer for you. From the beginning, this is the impression you get from Cloud. He was in Soldier, an elite fighting force run by the Shinra Electric Power Company. He left his hometown, Nibelheim, with the intention of becoming a soldier just like the famous war hero Sephiroth, whom he'd admired. He makes a promise to Tifa, his childhood friend, one night as they sit on a water tower, to be there to save her if she were ever in trouble. I could go into further detail, but the game makes it a point to lay down the basics first and foremost from Cloud's perspective. But as you continue onwards, certain things about Cloud's story start to fall apart, and he begins to change. All of this eventually leads to what I would personally consider one of the best plot twists I have ever witnessed in any media ever. Spoiler alert, Cloud Strife was never in Soldier. Yup, never was a soldier. This is where the story takes a turn. The Cloud Strife we play as, up until this reveal, is someone who is not truly Cloud at all. Sure, there were brief instances throughout the journey where his true self would try to come out, but Cloud was determined to be the cool guy he always strived to be, despite that not being who he really was at all. The real Cloud Strife wanted to join Soldier to become someone like Sephiroth. Not to be a hero, not to impress Tifa, but to become stronger, to be someone. He wanted to be seen by those around him. Cloud grew up in an environment where he and his mother, Claudia, had been mistreated by many of the folks in Nibelheim, and at a young age, Cloud was bullied by the other kids in town, leaving him isolated. Then, one day, Tifa's mother tragically passed away, and so Cloud followed Tifa and the other children up Mount Nibel. They went up in the hopes of finding Tifa's mother, as there was a superstition about Mount Nibel regarding the souls of the deceased, but one by one, the other children ran away, leaving Cloud behind with Tifa, who continued to march onward. The bridge on the mountain snapped, and both Cloud and Tifa plummeted to the ground. Tifa injured her head, leaving her unconscious for a week. When they found them, the blame was entirely put on Cloud. The other children blamed him and told the adults it was Cloud who had taken Tifa up the mountain. And due to his already unjust circumstances, everyone, including Tifa, who had lost her memories of the accident, thought it was his fault that Tifa had gotten hurt. This left Cloud even more isolated than before, and in an attempt to make up for his past mistakes, Cloud formed a new goal. If he joined Soldier and became someone like Sephiroth, then surely he would be seen. Surely he wouldn't be alone. The real journey behind Cloud's character wasn't a means to be a typical hero with the goal of helping others, but rather a way for Cloud to find connection with others, something he never had growing up. Cloud Strife's journey is pretty simple and straightforward in retrospect, but even still, there are many misconceptions about his character. Some of these misconceptions stem from his relationship to the other party members, and even the technicalities as to why Cloud was the way he was before finally being true to himself. Interestingly enough, there are many who still believe Cloud to be an aloof protagonist and don't see the real him hidden underneath the facade even after the reveal. It's quite puzzling when you look at the story as a whole, but Cloud played his role so well that a lot of people don't seem to distinguish between his true personality and the fake one. There are many ways to perceive his character in its entirety, but the real Cloud Strife is not a cool, nonchalant guy who doesn't care at all. Quite the opposite. He's actually a really soft-hearted individual who wants to connect with others and cherishes those connections deeply. Even after barely managing to save the planet with his friends, the loss of Aerith and his memories of Zack followed him deeply in the aftermath. He was wallowing up in his feelings of survivor's guilt during the events of Advent Children, distancing himself from his friends and living within Aerith's church as geostigma corroded his body. And even after all of that, it took the whole party to give him the courage and strength he needed to deal with the remnants, fighting Sephiroth with the goal of keeping those he loves safe. While Cloud may try to be a cool guy, he's really more of a dork underneath the mask. Thinking he chooses to be a loner and doesn't yearn for connection would be a great disservice to his character. Following the topic of his personality, I have seen many fans describe Cloud as having stolen Zack's memories, claiming that Cloud lied to the party about his past memories to make himself seem like the cool ex-soldier he always wanted to be. Many will say he pretended to be Zack, but to pretend means to be self-aware. Cloud had gone through a lot of trauma prior to the start of Final Fantasy VII, and that, mixed with the experimentations Hojo had put him through after the Nibelheim incident, left Cloud's state of mind completely warped. Cloud didn't pretend to be Zack. Cloud wasn't even aware of Zack's existence. He completely forgot about him, and due to the influence of the Essels within him, his mind took his memories and forged a story for him. Cloud wasn't faking or pretending to have been in Soldier. He genuinely believed he had made it. He genuinely thought it was him who had fought alongside Sephiroth during the Nibelheim mission. He believed he and Tifa had been close friends, when in reality they hardly knew each other. They were neighbors, but in his mind, Tifa was someone to impress, so when he saw her again, he put up the front of the hero he had promised to become, completely unaware that he never made it into Soldier at all. Now, this next point is something more interpretational than the other two, but I do believe it needs to be addressed. The infamous love triangle. Whether you're a fan of Final Fantasy VII or not, you are probably aware to some degree of the love triangle between Cloud, Tifa, and Aerith. This is something that I believe the story leaves room for, not because they are trying to present a canonical love interest for Cloud, but rather it is there for each player's enjoyment. While Final Fantasy VII has many themes, romance is not one of the larger focuses in the story, despite many people thinking it is. It's not necessarily wrong to think Cloud has chemistry with those around him, and there are times where the player is allowed to make certain dialogue choices for Cloud, but this has led to the misconception that Cloud is some type of self-insert character for the player. That kind of mindset can greatly alter the way the story is viewed, given there would be a much more biased perspective while going through the events in the plot. Personally, when I played through the game, I didn't really see any concrete romances being presented. While it's completely fair to want two characters to be together if you like the dynamic between them, diminishing the importance of another character or certain plot beats because it goes against your biases will likely lead to misinterpreting the story as a whole. The developers have shown to be open about people's interpretations of these characters, and they do provide enough fan service for everyone to be satisfied with their own biased preferences in regards to Cloud's relationships. However, Cloud is his own character with his own thoughts and feelings. Even if Cloud were to show any form of interest romantically in any of his friends, that is not the focus of the story, nor does it impact the overall plot, given that Final Fantasy VII is about Cloud's identity and how his loved ones help him regain his true self. Romance is the least of his worries, and there is no concrete proof that one ship is more canon than another. This story isn't about that at all. Cloud has never once stated that he canonically harbors romantic feelings for any of his friends. And even if he did, we as the audience will likely never know. That minor aspect of the story will never have a definitive answer because there was never supposed to be a true choice in the matter. To bring this video to its conclusion, I do want to bring up Final Fantasy VII Revelation, as it will be the last title of the remake trilogy. The trilogy could be its own video given how many new themes have been implemented into the already beloved story that was the original Final Fantasy VII. However, this video is in regards to Cloud Strife as a character, so I won't go too deep into it given that many of the circumstances around the original plot beats have gone through a transformation in the context of the remake's storyline. With that being said, I think this new game will leave a lot of room for Cloud's character to get explored in ways you've never seen before. Thanks to the themes of defying destiny, it is not so far-fetched to think that in order to give Cloud and all the other party members a proper happy ending, things may change this time around. Zack is out there running around and hopping world line to world line after managing to avoid death, and at the end of Rebirth, Cloud is stuck between worlds when Aerith is dying, leaving him with the understanding that he managed to save her. We're likely going to see a Cloud whose innate compassion is going to take him further than ever before, and to finally defeat Sephiroth once and for all, he will have to take care of him in a way that doesn't leave any room for him to come back. If they truly want to end this cycle, they will have to take the story in a whole new direction, one that may be even more challenging to Cloud's character as he learns of the truth of his past. How he will move forward with all of this in mind is yet to be seen, but I know it will be worth the journey to see him become the best version of himself.